And welcome back to another 100 essential movies that you should be checking out. This week we are talking about On the Waterfront. This was a movie I have not seen before, but there is the origins of something in here that I was not expecting and definitely made me smile when I heard. Do you know what it is? Well, stick around because I'm going to tell you in this review. Now let's get to the review and what I thought of On the Waterfront, a 1954 crime drama starring Marlon Brando and Carl Malden from A Streetcar Named Desire, which we just went over, and also starring Fred Gwynne, who I don't think had any lines in this movie, but I absolutely recognize that face. This film goes over corruption and union violence towards the longshoremen of the waterfront of Hoboken, New Jersey. At the time of its release, it was a critical and commercial success. It received 12 Academy Award nominations and won 8 of them. It was ranked by the American Film Institute as the 8th greatest movie of all time. And with all that being said, I wasn't a big fan. I was more like one of these. I feel like the acting was on point, and even the story, I think, had a good concept, but the execution of this just didn't land in a way that caught my attention, which is why I say it's important to not take the word of any critic or reviewer's opinions too seriously. The fact that I didn't like it doesn't stop the American Film Institute or anybody from 1954 that went to the movies thinking that this movie is fantastic. And I'm not saying it's a bad movie, it just didn't land for me the way that I guess it landed for a bunch of other people. So if you like crime dramas sprinkled with a little bit of a love story, then this movie is definitely going to be for you. On the Waterfront tells us the story of the mob-connected union boss, Johnny Friendly. The police and the Waterfront Crime Commission know that Friendly is behind a number of murders, but witnesses continue to play D&D. And I don't mean Dungeons and Dragons, because that was the only thing I thought of every time they said that phrase in this movie. D&D in this sense refers to deaf and dumb. Nobody heard nothing, nobody says nothing. Working for Johnny Friendly is an ex-prize fighter named Terry Malloy, who is now a dock worker, whose brother is Charlie the Gent, the right-hand man of Johnny Friendly. Now, the moment that kicks off the conflict in this story is when Terry is told to coax another longshoreman named Joey Doyle to the roof of his building, where he believes a couple of Johnny Friendly's thugs are going to rough him up a bit for talking about the goings-on at the waterfront. Terry, played by Marlon Brando, was not prepared when they threw Joey Doyle off of the roof, killing him. And thus begins the inner turmoil of Terry deciding whether or not he is going to tell the authorities what he knows. Joey's sister Edie, played by Eva Marie Saint, obviously angry about her brother's death, returns home to try to figure out the details behind what actually happened. Terry and Edie are reacquainted, supposedly from knowing each other when they were younger. As Terry falls for Edie more and more, Terry starts leaning more and more towards testifying. This, of course, does not sit well with Johnny Friendly, and he decides that Terry must be killed unless his brother can coerce him into keeping quiet. Charlie meets up with Terry to try to coerce him into not testifying, with the end result being that if Terry does decide to testify, Charlie is to kill him at the end of this car ride. It's in this scene that we hear the origin of the phrase, "I could have had class. I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody." Which is something, again, I've heard referenced in so many things, never knowing what the original is. This quote was in reference to Terry throwing some fights for Johnny Friendly back when he was a fighter. Charlie is unable to bring himself to off his brother, as anyone would, or hopefully anyone would. Terry goes back to Edie's place to explain everything that has gone on when Johnny Friendly's thugs call him out and lead him to his brother's body. The punishment for Charlie for not ending Terry was that Charlie received his fate. This absolutely tips the scales for Terry to testify against Johnny Friendly, which leads to a very emotional and confrontational few ending scenes. So there you have it. There is plenty of stuff that should have gotten its hooks into me to be a big fan of this movie, but for some reason it just didn't click. Maybe rewatching it later on down the line might sway me back in the other direction. But as of right now, I think I'm going to stand firm in my belief that it was a good movie, it just didn't do it for me. Let me know in the comments below if you've already seen it, or if you knew the origins of that quote before I told you. And now we get to my favorite part, the scratching. So now the scratching off of On the Waterfront. Going into this movie not knowing anything about it, I thought this might have had something to do with Candyman based on the hook, but I was very, very far off. Let's see what is behind here. Alright, looks like Marlon Brando's character talking to Edie, possibly? Or maybe Charlie? Probably not a good sign that I can't tell the difference between a man and a woman. And there we have it. Two people talking. So there we have it, the scratching off of On the Waterfront. Next week we're going to be checking out Rear Window by Alfred Hitchcock, also from 1954. I want to take this time to thank everybody for stopping by and watching this review. Make sure you hit those buttons down at the bottom. Maybe tell your movie-loving friends. And let me know what you thought. Have you already seen this movie? Are you interested in checking it out? And a very big, special, huge I love you, thank you to my Patreon subscribers whose names are popping up in just a moment. You guys are super awesome. I hope you're enjoying the Patreon exclusive movie reviews on Mondays. And don't forget to check out Thursday's review, House of Wax with Vincent Price. So with that, I must be going, and I will catch you all next Tuesday. I love you. Later days.